We are not doctors. Nothing in this podcast should be taken as medical advice. Consult your physician before starting any workout routine. This is the Martial Heart Podcast.
Hey everybody, good morning and welcome back to the podcast. It's September 11th, 2024, which would be 23 years since the 9/11 terror attacks. It would be 13 years since my deployment to Afghanistan started with me going to the Pentagon for a week or 2 weeks. I can't remember how long it was, but that was a fun trip. And then 1 month anniversary of me being hospitalized with a heart attack. So here is an update for you because I had my cardiologist appointment yesterday. And they're switching me on medications. They're switching up the medications from the Brilinta to Plavix, hoping that might, help with some of my side effects. But while he was listening to my heart, suddenly he said he wanted to order a heart monitor for me, a 2-week heart monitor, just in case. He wanted to make sure they didn't miss something. And I don't know if he heard something at that point or not. But later in the evening, what I've been doing is when I would have the dizzy spells or, a lot of nausea would come on, I've pretty much just been dealing with it. But for the first couple of weeks, I was checking my blood pressure multiple times a day. And I stopped doing that because my blood pressure has been normal. So I used to write this off to when my heart would pound a little more than normal. And I would feel like a flutter in my chest, like a fluttering feeling every once in a while. I always wrote that off to blood pressure, having a blood pressure issue. So last night, when it started happening, I put the blood pressure cuff on and I started taking my blood pressure. Blood pressure was normal, but what it was telling me at the time was that my heart rate was not normal. And you can see the strange sign behind me saying arrhythmia. My blood pressure cuff that also handles my pulse is telling me that I am occasionally having arrhythmia, which means an irregular heartbeat. And I took some videos of it to look to show you guys. So let's see if we can do this. Okay, so if you look at the scale next to the 74, blink, 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 blink. There's supposed to be a beat in between there, and this is the blood pressure cuff. So blink, blink, nothing. Blink, blink, nothing. And when those nothings would happen, in between those two blinks, I would feel like a tap in my chest. And that's the symbol telling me that I am having an arrhythmia, and that it only logged 44 beats, even though it felt like my heart beat more times than that. So, and then that was when I switched over to the pulse ox to do it there, and I obviously was getting upset because my heart rate was up, but I was still having the arrhythmia. And I started to realize I've had this before. I had this before I had the heart attacks. I had this for years and never really understood what it was. Always thought it was a blood pressure issue. I would lay down at night and try to go to sleep and my heart would start pounding harder. I always thought it was a blood pressure thing. And then I would go to the doctor and they would put me on an EKG. They do a whole 10 seconds and they understand your heart. No, they don't. Because since mine is only, it's not all the time. It only happens every now and then. It's just a matter of timing. They would put the EKG on there and it wouldn't detect anything. Or they put me on quite a few years ago, they put me on a 24-hour heart monitor because somebody caught something one time on an EKG and they didn't like it. So they put me on a 24-hour heart monitor. And at the end of that 24 hours, they were like, okay, nothing's wrong. Everything's fine. But obviously it's not. But it's only happening sometimes. It doesn't happen all of the time. So if a doctor is listening to my heartbeat in the office, or they put me on an EKG for 10 seconds or even a minute, or even a heart monitor for 24 hours, it may not happen during that 24-hour period. So it's gone years without being detected as an issue for me. And I have just self-diagnosed. So this is something that we definitely will have to talk to the cardiologist about, because this all occurred after I left the appointment with the cardiologist. So obviously he may have heard something or read something on one of the charts or something that may have tipped him off that he needs to do something. So they're going to put me on a 2-week heart monitor. I have to wait a few days for it to come in the mail, and then you do the thing and you put it on, and I have to wear it for 2 weeks and then send it back. And I'm assuming during a 2-week period, I will definitely have this arrhythmia issue pop up. So, but the good thing about my blood pressure cuff is that it logs, it keeps a log and a history, and it connects to my phone. And so I have a ready list of my blood pressures, my heart rates, and all of that stuff every time I take it. So that's new. Never really understood that that's what was going on, but I definitely had this arrhythmia feel before, and I just didn't know what it was. So, and I'm not even just talking about for a little while. I'm talking about for years. But it didn't stop me from doing anything. It didn't stop me from exercising, having a fulfilling life, being fit. Nobody detected it because it only happens occasionally. But it's obvious to me when it does happen now that after last night, now I can tell when it happens. And it's been happening a lot for the last few days, actually. And online, it says that is, it's not uncommon for people to have arrhythmia after having, a heart procedure, like having stents or angio or whatever. But obviously, I had it before. So I don't know if the procedure kind of exacerbated it, or, it's going to be more common now or what, because it seems to be more common since the procedure. And now that I've identified it as what it is, now it makes a lot more sense to me. And that's why I would go to the doctor and they're like, no, your blood pressure is fine. I don't know what's going on with you. When you would say you have these sensations. And when I was talking to the doctor yesterday, he was like, what symptoms do you have when this dizziness comes on? And I would tell him, and he just, we're trying to decide, could it be the medicines? And those are side effects of 2 of the medicines I'm taking. So it's kind of it could be that, I guess. So they're going to change the medicines around. But now, arrhythmia. So hopefully we get that resolved. There's a couple of ways to resolve it. But if it's a mild arrhythmia, then I guess they don't really worry about it. You can live with it and not be a big deal. If it gets serious, there's other things they have to do, like they have to zap your heart to try and get it back into a normal. I don't know if you just saw something weird happen right now, but I just now got lightheaded. Just now felt like somebody was starting to choke me out. So, wow, this is cool. Now it's all on. It didn't probably look like anything, but real-time explanation. It just felt like that. And I don't know. I don't know what's happening. But anyway, the heart procedure itself, I guess, went okay. So, the doctor isn't worried too much about that. He wants me to do all of this cardiac rehab, which is 12 weeks worth. So I go back to that tomorrow and keep going. He wants me to do, I'm going back to work next week, thankfully, which means, hey, I won't go completely bankrupt. So back to work next week, light duty until I complete the cardiac rehab and they are able to decide how I'm doing. And, hey, look, another train. Here comes the train. See if we can hear it this time. I did hear it when I went back and listened to the recording yesterday. I did pick up the train whistle there, or the horn, whatever they call them now, on the recording. So I'm sure it'll be picked up on this one, but I'm going to turn the microphone down a little bit. Maybe you'll hear less of it. And now it's back up again. So everything is just a wait and see again. Like I said, there's a lot of ups and downs involved in heart stuff. And I was up. I mean, my recording yesterday, I felt pretty good. I was pretty happy about the way things are going. And, I was optimistic. I was upbeat. I wasn't going to dance a jig or anything yet, but, I felt good about things. And then stuff like this happens. And, yeah, I know you're going to take a couple of steps backward because you're like, wait a minute, I'm not completely healed. I'm not completely healthy yet. We're hoping that gets resolved and that I do become completely healthy again. But I even, mentioned to my wife over the last couple of days, I feel pretty good. I feel better than I have. And so you get very optimistic. And then weird things happen. And you take a couple of steps backwards. So here we are. But got to accept it for what it is. Have to take one day at a time. Have to stay optimistic. I'm not pessimistic about my chances of recovery or how I'm going to feel long term. There are ways to deal with situations. Even if this arrhythmia becomes a lifelong problem, then they stick a pacemaker in you. And after that, well, who knows what you can do after that. I guess it's on an individual basis, but that would pretty much end rolling in jiu-jitsu, I'm sure, not because you can't do that with a pacemaker controlling your heart, but it's right there. It's a thing that you can feel in your chest. And I know this because my friend Ed has one and my brother has one. So it's a thing that you can actually feel and under the skin, under the muscles. So I'm sure they wouldn't want you smashing each other around with pressure like you do in jiu-jitsu on your chest. If you have a pacemaker right there, you're probably taking some risks you shouldn't take. But that doesn't mean you can't do other things like karate or yoga or tai chi or whatever. Like I said, that one professional soccer player plays soccer with a pacemaker. But he's not boxing or doing MMA or jiu-jitsu where he's chest to chest, or impacts, that sort of stuff. So that, I would imagine, would be out of the question. So now we are, I wouldn't say back to square one, because we're not. We're not back to square one, but things are changing. So I'm going to do the outro music. I'm going to put an end to this one and come back and talk some more. I have to go get my new medication and stuff and start trying that. They're going to have me load up just like you do on like creatine, where you take 4 in a day and then 1 a day after that. So until next time, probably later today, everybody take care of yourselves. Arrhythmia, check it.